This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
You can never be everything for everybody. Saying no to the right things will do you way more good than saying yes to everything.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back. We have Lee Sweitzer of Sweitzer Performance with us, and I met Lee at the Essentials of Operating a Shop class in San Jose, California, and he was a new guy in the performance shop ownership business, I guess you could say. And so Lee, I actually asked him to be on the show here today to give us a perspective of somebody who is starting up a shop, not somebody who has already been doing it for a while. And he's really done a lot to make sure he is successful. So Lee will kind of tell us of the path he's taking to get this thing going. So Lee, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and so this, like I said, this is kind of a different concept we're going to take with the show here. Is we're gonna actually do Lee and a couple other shops, and we're going to kind of follow you as you grow. So this is kind of before you open, and I want to do this again probably. We had talked about doing once every quarter, doing just a 15-minute update, but we'll kind of see how that goes. But it just giving us an idea of things you're doing to improve the shop, and struggles you've had, things that you've been able to figure out. We're kind of follow up with you as we go, and I think that'll be really cool to see, how you're actually able to make this work for you. So let's go ahead and get started here. Lee, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself? How did you get involved in this community, and what made you want to start a business in, the performance world?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I grew up with my dad. He had a Fox body Mustang that he actually still has it, that he's drag raced since as long as I can remember. My brother and I, we did the typical thing when we were too young. We rode BMX bikes and skateboards, and we did all that. But it was like every weekend we were at the racetrack, and it was just all that I knew, So when, back home, we would be in the garage working on the race car all the time. And even, when I was real young and I had no idea what I was doing, I'd hand him tools or, do whatever it was. It was fun to me. So, I got my first car. I was 15, and my dad had this, it was a black 84 50. It was the biggest piece of junk that you've ever seen. It was sitting in the backyard as like a parts car. He had bought it for a couple $100, and we were looking at a car, and all I wanted was that. I told him, I was like, I want that, and he's like, all right, well, let's see if we can make it run. So, we put some money in it, and we got it to run, and, I didn't know anything about tuning a carburetor, so it wouldn't even idle by itself. I drove it to school every single day, and I think it broke probably once a week. But, it taught me something about, how to work on things and how to, make my own way. And it kind of gave me that taste for horsepower. When I was 17, I graduated high school, and I joined the service. I became a Marine. And, since then I've had a whole bunch of Mustangs, but once I got through training, I wound up being stationed actually right down the street from home here in Southern California. So, I started racing with my dad whenever I could, taking my street cars or whatever it is that I had at the time to the racetrack. And I just always wanted to be around it. And before long, we started putting some power into some of them, and, then it obviously has escalated from there. I'm still a Marine right now. Got 60 days left of doing this, and that'll be 8 years. So, 4 years ago, when I re-enlisted for another term, that was kind of when I knew that I wanted to do something. I wanted to own my own business, And this just kind of seemed like the natural place to go. It was what I knew, it was what I was good at, and it's what I enjoy. So I figured if I was going to leave the security of having like a retirement when I'm 37 years old and having the guaranteed pay and having the benefits and stuff, it might as well be for something that I want to do. So I've spent the last however many years now, preparing to do this and preparing to do it the right way. I had a vision, and all I did was just kind of work backwards, say that this is where I want to be, and these are the things that I need to do to get there.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for your service. 8 years is a long time, so you've probably been to Iraq and Afghanistan, or one or two or both, huh?
I've been to Afghanistan twice, and I did a deployment on a Navy ship, and I kind of got the opportunity to go all over the world on that one. So, I've been a lot of places that aren't a lot of fun, and I mean that's I wouldn't trade it for anything. I loved every second of it, but it does wear on you after a time. So,
So living the American dream. First you defend our country, and now you're getting to do exactly what you want to do. So in the end, it's all working out for you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and that's not really a common thing in the job that I do. There's one of about 3 responses when you ask somebody in the service what they're going to do when they leave. It's something to the effect of, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to be a cop, or I'm going to move back home and my buddy's going to give me a job. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of intelligent thought that goes from a lot of these guys, and it's kind of sad, but I decided a long time ago that wasn't going to be me. I had a vision in my head, and I'm not leaving the service and then just coming to do this. I'm leaving the service to do this, and there's a big difference.
Okay, so kind of tell me, what was your age when you got that Mustang? I mean, you said you were with your dad at the drag strip. How old were you? You were obviously old enough to drive, huh?
Yeah, I was 15 when I got the first one. And he had it sitting in the backyard for about a year. And, back then, all I was doing was trying to learn how to drive stick and keep my car running so I could go to school every day. But, it wasn't really until I joined the service, which was right after high school, that, I got it was a 2003 Mach 1. I got that, and, that was when I really started dabbling in horsepower, and at least my own, other than, my dad's and doing things like that. That was the first time where I really started, modifying my own stuff in any kind of serious manner.
Okay. And so you obviously went into the Marines straight out of high school, you just said, right?
I did, yes.
Okay. So, and you've been there for the last 8 years.
I have.
So what kind of, I mean, other than having a passion for cars, like what made you want to start your own shop? I mean, like why not just work for somebody else?
I mean, this has kind of been, like I said, it's been a dream of mine for a long time. And there's a lot of things that, that I guess I'll back up a little bit. I had a vision of what I want my life to be. Okay. And that's really not anything grand or excessive, but to me, the only answer to be able to have the freedom that I want when I want it, to make the money that I want, and to do the things that I enjoy, to put all of those things into kind of, one basket, there really isn't, working for somebody else isn't really the answer. So, I had, an idea of how I want to do this my way. And, there's a lot of things that I see that go on that, I see shop owners and, technicians or whatever, they struggle on the grind every single day. And it doesn't need to be that way. I feel like that's kind of a common, it's just sort of accepted as this is the way it is when you want to own a business. And I don't think that's true. So, it takes time and it takes effort, but, you can have that freedom and to do the things you want, to enjoy coming into the shop on the days that you choose, things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, what's so intriguing to this, or intriguing about this to me, is like you have this goal to start the shop, but you're not just, like, okay, when I'm done with the Marines, I'm just going to open a shop. You have been thinking about this for, it sounds like years, and planning this. And when I say planning, it doesn't mean just like, okay, I'm going to open a shop. I'll probably work on Mustangs. You're actually doing legitimate, like reading books, and, you attended our class, and you're probably, you're in the community kind of gearing everything up and planning for what to do, like what software to use and what tools and equipment to have. You've thought this all through, right? I mean, this is not just you transitioning out from the Marines with your, your eyes are open. You're aware of what you're going to be doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I kind of had the vision of what I wanted it to be, and I just worked backwards. I said, how do I need to get there, and what do I need? What are the tools that I need? Because it's not like I'm leaving, a 20-year career with $500,000 in the bank to just go get it wrong for 3 or 5 years until, I catch a clue. It's just not an option for me. So, the whole failure bit, maybe that's a good motivator, but I made it my business to know what it is that I need to know to be successful. So that means, I've been to the EOS class. I've been to just about every seminar that's within 50 miles of me that like the Small Business Development Center puts on, that SCORE puts on. I've met with business mentors. I've read every freaking book I can get my hands on. That's what I probably, at least for the last year, and really more than that, that's what I've spent almost every spare moment of mine that I have doing, is making it my business to know how to run a business.
Okay. Do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur?
Maybe once upon a time, when I was first jumping into this, I would have thought that, but really the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody that sees a venture, a new, business venture for its profit potential. And that's really not the case for me. I would consider myself a business owner, but an entrepreneur, I'm not going after some exciting new product, and I'm not, really looking at an exit strategy and how much I can gross on this whole thing. I'm going into something that I really want to do, that I have a passion for. So, I would say no.
How has your location played a role in your decision to do this? Is being in Southern California easier to do it?
So far as the local law goes, really no. California, I guess it's no secret that we have the strictest smog laws and the strictest, everything here. They don't like our community too much up in Sacramento. But so far as where I am right now, obviously there's a ton of people in Southern California. It's a huge market for performance enthusiasts. There's 3 drag strips within 70 miles of me. So it's not nearly as bad as some people want to make it out to be. And me particularly, I'm specialized in Ford performance. So the closest person to me that is anything like that is almost 100 miles from me. So that market, it's here, and I've been a part of that community for however many years. So I know that it's huge. And they don't really have those guys that don't want to try to figure it out in their garage. They don't have anywhere to specifically to go unless they want to, drive all the way, a couple hours away and try to figure it out. The only thing they really have here is there's some LS based specialty shops, and then there's just kind of like some of those general performance guys nearby, but nobody for that specific community to turn to when they need something.
Okay. When you doubt yourself and think, if this isn't going to work, what am I going to do? Obviously getting rolling on this you must have a lot of doubt because you're unsure of what's actually going to happen, right?
I guess, but most of the doubt in this whole venture has not really come from myself. It's come from anybody that's heard any inclination of what I'm trying to do. Obviously I'm in the service. If you don't know anything about being in the service, that's a pretty guaranteed paycheck. It's guaranteed free medical. And like I said, if I wanted to stay, I could have a retirement check when I'm 37. So between the people telling me, why are you going to leave the service? And the people telling me, why are you going to open a shop? Why aren't you going to go back to college, or whatever stereotypical answer they want me to give? If I had $1 for every one of those, I could retire right now. So, but me personally, I'll share a little story with you. I don't want to make this too much about my service, but something that I kind of realized inside myself a long time ago. So when I first came in, when you're in boot camp at the very end of your training, so it's 3 months in, you're a week away from graduating, and it's a final test. It's called the Crucible. So the Crucible is 56 hours of pretty much no sleep, almost no food. You walk something like 60 to 70 miles during that time, and it's just exercise after exercise after exercise, and then put the pack back on and hike up a mountain and exercise and shoot at some stuff. It's nonstop go. And at the very end of it, it's a 10-mile hike, and that culminates climbing probably the biggest mountain you've ever seen in your life. We call it the Reaper. So you climb that mountain. Yeah, you can touch the ground in front of you as you're walking up it. So you walk up this after, almost 3 straight days of, being exhausted and starving, and you get to the top and you come back down the other side. And there's a ceremony there where they give you, it's the Marine Corps emblem, the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. They hand it to you, and from then on, you're a Marine. You're not a recruit anymore. You're a Marine, and it's probably the most emotional thing that most Marines ever experience in their life. So when that emblem was placed in my hand, I realized right then and there, and ever since then, it sticks with me every day. Whenever I have something that I want to do, is that if you want something bad enough, you make it happen, and that's it, period. The stakes don't matter, and you never count the cost. If you want to give up, then you were either too weak to realize your goal, or you really didn't want it as bad as you might have even told yourself. So, like I said, if you want something bad enough, then you make it happen. Okay. And failure's just, it's not there. It's not an option.
Okay. Have you had any worst experiences yet in the business?
Not really. I mean, I've started to experience the struggles of suppliers not being able to meet deadlines, and customers having unrealistic expectations and things like that. But
that will never end.
Yeah, ever. But the biggest, I guess, struggle, and it's not a single incident, but the single struggle I have right now is that everybody, not everybody, but there's a large, I guess, misconception that what we do here in like the performance community is a commodity. You know what I mean? Like there's the price shoppers are there. Like if I swear it's 3 out of 4 people that ask me for an estimate or whatever it is. I'm getting real tired of being compared to Summit. You know what I mean? So, I don't pretend to have all the answers on how to fix it, but my approach to this whole thing is just educating somebody, and even goes into maybe educating them a little bit about how running a business works. That I like the steakhouse analogy. I use it pretty often. So yeah, I mean, other than that, it's nothing crazy yet.
Okay. Tell us something you're doing right now that has you fired up.
So I told you before the interview, I got the keys to my shop today.
Oh, excellent.
So yeah, that's obviously pretty exciting. So, the next couple weeks we're moving everything in there, and that's I guess in my little space might not seem like much to, a whole lot of people. The whole thing's 1,000 square feet, but I mean, to me, I guess, and I'm sure it's the same for everybody. The first time, it was like, it's awesome.
It is fun, and then you're going to quickly realize 1,000 square feet is too small.
I mean, I know it's too small right now, but like I said, I've still got a couple months left of this, so
gotcha. We're doing it part time, at night and on the weekends, and I forgot what free time was, at least for now. So. It's a flexible arrangement that we have, and we're looking for a more permanent space right now, and we'll see what comes available. The way that our area is zoned, there's kind of slim pickings, so you have to jump on an opportunity when it arrives, right. And that opportunity just really hasn't showed up yet. Okay. So before we continue on and talk about Sweitzer Performance, I wanted to take a second and thank our sponsors. Before we continue on, I wanted to take a second and tell everyone about My Shop Assist. If you own or work for a performance shop of any type, such as installation shops, tuning, engine, transmission, or even custom fabrication, take some time and think about how organized and efficient your operation is. Our goal at Do It For a Living is to tell success stories on the industry and educate you, the listener, on how to be successful in your business. My Shop Assist was developed for this very reason and helps to address many of the most common shortcomings at shops. With My Shop Assist being cloud-based, you have access to your data from anywhere. You will have a built-in calendar, track tasks and parts on every job you have, track time, document your work with notes and pictures, as well as files such as tuning files and data logs. Individualized task lists for techs and reports to measure their efficiency. Jobs can be exported to QuickBooks for accounting. So MSA was designed to be simple to use and will help anyone from a one-man shop up to the top-performing shops in our industry. Check out the system for free at www.myshopassist.com. Tell us about Sweitzer Performance. You obviously said you just got your keys to this new building. You said it's 1,000 square feet. So you're renting. You're not going to be looking to be buying a building anytime soon, I'm guessing. Just kind of get your feet wet. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, so the place that we have now, it's I'm subleasing it from a friend, and that's I'm not looking to be there any more than 3 to 4 months. So the place that we're looking for is something in the neighborhood of 3,000 square feet, and that'll give me room for 4 or 5 lifts, an office, front reception area, storage. And hopefully by the end of next year, we'll have a chassis dyno. But, for the first 3 to 5, maybe a little longer, I'm not looking to buy anything because I want to stay flexible and let the business grow as it needs to. And, when our needs change, obviously owning your own real estate is ideal, and it is a goal, but that doesn't have a timeline on it, just because it's especially for these first few years a little too unpredictable to jump into a building that turns out to be too small or even too big. Right. That is possible.
Okay. And I guess this just makes sense to me now, and it surely should have made sense earlier. But you said that you're done with the Marines in 60 days, and I think that corresponds to your opening day with the shop. Is that correct?
Sort of. So I'll be done in the middle of August, and I'll go full time then. And then in the August-September timeframe, we're going to bring on two employees, and our official grand opening date. And I'm pretty dead set on keeping it because it's good for marketing to have a date that's been nailed down for so long. That's October 1st. Okay. So I'm holding myself to that timeline to have our grand opening event and really introduce ourselves to the community at that time. But that'll give me about 6 weeks to, obviously go full time from what I'm doing now, train employees in systems and all of that good stuff, and just kind of work out the bugs a little bit before, hopefully business really picks up. So
what's your target market?
So we have 2. The first, I guess the most obvious, is the Ford street enthusiasts, the Mustang guys, the guys with the Ford Lightnings, those type of things, right?
And for the listeners who aren't aware of what you do yet, you have a Fox body that runs, it does wheelies, and I see awesome pictures of it all the time. So it's obviously pretty quick, huh?
Yeah, my personal car that has got our shop name plastered all over it. It'll run 980s, and it's really it's nothing ridiculous that compared to some of the stuff that you see out on the street. Even it doesn't make a ton of power. It works really well, and it's something to see when it's dragging the bumper every time you let go of the trans brake. So it's a pretty good marketing tool. But yeah, so there's a lot of street strip type Ford guys around that they see things like that, and they don't necessarily want to do that, but they want to take their car to the racetrack. They want to learn what it means to have traction and to make their stuff work. So that's a pretty big base that's here. The weekend warrior type guy. There's hundreds of Mustang clubs and Ford clubs, like just within 50 miles of me. They're everywhere, and I know this because I've been a part of them. So there's those guys, and kind kind of within that same market, there's the less involved enthusiasts that, you know, they go and they get their car and they want to go fast, but they don't, you know, they're not necessarily, you know, the do-it-yourselfer enthusiast type guy. All they know is that they want to go fast, and that really doesn't matter how they get there. So educating those type of people and appealing to that market is pretty important to us. But the second group, and the group that I know the best, those are bracket racers. So that's the type of racing that we do is bracket racing on the drag strip. So that's what I grew up around my whole life. It's what I know how to do, how to make that. You know, the idea in bracket racing is not necessarily to have the fastest car, but to have the most consistent. So you run the same time over and over. And that's what I know how to do. I know how to make cars consistent that work well. So these guys, they're knowledgeable in the performance of their car, almost without exception. They know what's up, but they want the best stuff. They want the best work. They want the best products. They want the latest and greatest, and they want that competitive edge, because in that type of racing, that competitive edge is usually very, very small. So, you know, those guys, appealing to them is, it's not as difficult as I had thought it would be, because we have our own cars that work so well. So people want what we have.
Gotcha. And you're not just randomly picking a market. You have been a part of this community and you understand it. So this is kind of really important for doing a startup, is you are aware of the market and its needs and its competitors, right? So you know who you're going to be competing against and what kind of, you know, like quality work they put out, and, you know, where to go to get these customers. You have all this stuff already, you have this knowledge from just being a part of the community, right?
Yeah, and the things that I didn't know, you know, it's one thing to say that you know it, but the real challenge is to go write it down on paper. So you say, I know this, you know, the Ford enthusiasts, those are my people. I've been around them my whole life. This is what I know. Okay, well, describe that target market in a business plan. You know, really, really delve into those demographics. Do you really know those people? What type of disposable income do they have? How many cars per household do they have? You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole lot more that goes into knowing your market than just saying, hey, there's car people in Temecula and I'm going to sell parts to them.
So have you written a formal business plan?
I have written a formal business plan, and I feel like I'm one of, I don't know, 3 or 4 that have come on the podcast that have said yes to that. And I didn't really know that was an option when you go to start a business or open a shop or whatever it is you're doing. I didn't know that was just a very common thing, that nobody did that. So to me, it was like, all right, I'm going to start a business. What's step number 1? Write a business plan. And mine, there's a few different versions of it, but the longest one is 46 pages long. So, I mean, you can kind of gather how much time and effort I put into it. And it was much an exercise for me as it was for maybe to give to a bank one day or anything else. But, you know, like I said earlier, putting all of that on paper, you know, it'll really challenge you to know what it is that you're after and what it is that you're doing. So, I mean, yours doesn't, you know, if you choose to write one, it doesn't need to be anything as in-depth as mine. But if you don't have some kind of standard or direction to hold yourself accountable to, then to me, it's kind of a question of what are you doing? That's kind of chasing your tail, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have a benchmark to measure yourself from if you don't do that. So me, the way that I've planned my business was I just started with a vision of what I want my life to look like. And I just worked backwards. So, you know, I said, this is what I want to be able to do. This is how much money it's going to take. And this is what the business has to look like to produce that. So, I mean, I'll share with the listeners. It's really no secret to me. The end state is to be able to, you know, have a shop that's, you know, around 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. And for me to be able to come into that shop 4 to 5 days a week because I want to, not because I need to, and have that freedom. I have the freedom to go race when I want to race, to spend the time with my family that up until now I never really had. For me to be able to afford to do that and have the time to do that, the business needs to generate about $1 million in revenue. We'll have 5 full-time and 1 part-time employee. That's 3 techs, a shop manager, service writer, and a part-time, helper or a house mouse.
Okay. Okay, so give us an idea of what is all in this business plan. I mean, you just kind of mentioned what your shop needs to be like to reach your end goal, but how do you come to that, and how do you target your demographics? Like you already mentioned that you're like looking at people's number of vehicles they have and how many of them are what kind of income are they making? What are you actually doing to plan this all out?
So, I mean, every business plan starts with an executive summary, which just says, this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Okay. So a lot of it really, when you write the whole thing out in detail, there's a lot of it that's sort of abstract. It's not based in numbers. So there's, you say, this is our mission statement. This is our, this is where we're going to be. This is who we're going to serve. And this is the manner in which we're going to serve them. But when you start getting past an executive summary and past like like a general operating order, when you're talking about market analysis, really, I mean, that can get as in-depth as you want it to be. So for me, I looked at both SEMA and census data and just kind of did the best that I could. So that's when you look at how many people are in your area, how many, what is their average household income, what is their average cars per household, and you can get general like that. And some of it you just have to draw your own conclusions about. So me, like obviously part of my target market is those are racers. So how many racetracks are nearby? How many, about how many racers attend those racetracks on a semi-regular basis? What percentage of that market can you hope to capture? And you can go on and on and on. And unless you have a degree in market research, then you're not ever going to get it exactly right. But the more thought that you can put into it and the more numbers that you can generate from it, I feel the better off that you're really going to be.
Yeah, and Todd actually he told me this, that a lot of times a business plan is not to make yourself successful. It's to make sure it's to go through the numbers to make sure you're, you actually need to do this. Like after you go through the exercise of building a business plan, at the end of the business plan, if it says, this is good, we can make this work, then that's a viable business. If you walk through these exercises and every single one of them was like, well, we'll just fudge numbers to make it look good, and then that may be telling you that the business is not a viable business. So you've obviously done the exercise and you're extensively into this, and you've come to the conclusion that this is a viable business, right?
Yeah. So far as the financial projections go, I don't really care what anybody tells you. When you write your financial projections, you might get kind of close for the first year, but anything after that is you're kind of staring at a crystal ball. You know what I mean? So yep. Anything, the numbers that you have are, as long as you stay real with yourself and you stay, whatever it is that you think you can achieve, cut about 30% off of that. And if the number still makes sense, then maybe you have something. But if what you are hoping is like best case is barely going to get you by, then you're right. Maybe you might want to look in a different market or in a different business venture.
What's your plan for employees? You said you wanted 3 to 5, I think is what you said, but how do you want to ramp those in? Like what's the plan for that?
Okay. So in August or September, somewhere in that time frame, that's when I'll hire my first 2. That's one other technician and a service writer or receptionist, whatever you want to call them, because quite frankly, I'm not the greatest salesman in the world. So for a little while, I'll still be in the shop with that other tech. And the goal is to have a second full-time tech by the springtime. So no later than next April or May, to have the business to support another full-time tech. And at that point, I will be out of the shop at least full time, not in the, not wrenching every single day. So the second year, which will be 2000, by the end of 2018, that's when during that time, which, like I said, this far out is still kind of gazing in a crystal ball, but that that goal is to have a third technician, and hopefully one of those can move to a shop manager role, which again is taking some of that burden away from me. What I do is management, and what I can teach is management. So, that's really the way I want to do it. The reason why is because a lot of technicians, and especially if you hire somebody with like shop management experience, quite frankly, they bring their bad habits with them. And my business, I'm always open to learn things from people, but my business is going to be run my way, not the way that everybody else says that this is the way we've always done. So I'd rather foster that growth from within the company.
You said your business was managing. Is that kind of like what you did with the Marines? Like, what were you doing with the Marines? Is that
That's
kind of experience?
Yes, sir. That's what I do every single day. So, I mean, if you know a little bit about rank structure, I mean, once you become a non-commissioned officer, like whatever it is that your specialty is, your job, you're obviously still in that every day, but that's not what you do every single day anymore. What you do is lead Marines, and you manage people. And what I do, the type of management that we do, is totally different than what a manager in a shop or in a restaurant or anywhere else does, really, because I don't just manage what my people do between 7 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the evening. Like it's a whole lot more than that. You manage literally every part of their life. So every major purchase that they make, every relationship problem that they have, every type of family emergency that they have going on, like about everything that is going on in their life, and you manage and you guide them in literally everything that they do. So to me, teaching somebody to manage and lead somebody in a more regular job environment, like it's almost easy, I guess.
And you're not afraid to tell people to do something, which is what like I struggle with and a lot of other people struggle with, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's I guess it's going to be my biggest challenge. It hasn't been so bad yet, but I have even personally, never mind the professional thing. Like I have a really bad, I guess you say it's a bad habit of just telling you the way it is. So yeah, I mean, and the simple truth is that most people in the job market today, employees, that you have to be sweet and you have to be nice.
You need to coddle them.
Yeah, and that's not something that I've spent a whole lot of years doing exactly the opposite of that. So, it'll be interesting.
So, what do you plan for your primary sources of revenue to be? Are you going to be doing mostly service, with some parts? Are you going to do any manufacturing?
So the only thing that's in the business plan is part sales and service. And right now, myself, doing it part-time, I'm right at 50-50, and I expect that to continue. I might be a little heavy on the service side compared to parts, but that's really it. I'm not, manufacturing just as like a business venture. It might be something that we're looking into in the future, but that's only going to come at a time that I really have something that solves a unique problem that is worth the massive investment and the time pursuit to do so.
Gotcha. And I think you're probably right on par, because my shop in 2014 was almost exactly 50-50 parts and service. And it's been falling off where I do less part sales simply because more and more people are price shopping everything online, and I just can't compete, and I don't care to compete. So my part sales has dropped, and my overall revenue has dropped, but my service has always been pretty steady. And what's nice is the more efficient you make it, the more money you make. And I can make just as much money or more focusing on that than I ever could with selling parts. So I think you got a pretty good idea of what to do there. So are you doing any advertising or marketing yet? Facebook, you're obviously building your webpage. I've seen you. We talked about that a little bit before we started the podcast. So go ahead and tell us what you're doing with that.
Yeah. So obviously our marketing budget, while we do have some budget, it's not enormous. So Facebook ads has been like the biggest, I guess the easiest way to gain leads and to gain exposure. And we do that with targeted ads, right? So not all of that stuff is like a sales pitch. Some of it's just, an article that we wrote, or, some race results from when we went to the racetrack, or whatever it is. But I try to follow the 80-20 rule. So 80% of what we post is, cars we got in the shop, or, here's a picture of our race car doing a really big wheelie, or whatever it is, right? And then the other 20% is, either a product, or, whatever it is, like, hey, we offer this service, etc. So the targeted audience is extremely effective, because you can really dig down into exactly what it is, like who you're trying to bring into your shop. You can, all right, so they're predominantly male, between these ages, they are interested in these things, they have been to this place, whatever it is that you want to do. It's extremely effective, but you're not always going to get it right. So you kind of have to take some time and see what works and what doesn't work, and, spend a little money, but it's nothing excessive.
Mm-hmm. And you're obviously building your own car, right? So that's advertising for you.
So my car has been a huge marketing tool, a lot more really than I expected. Actually, I've got a customer's car in the shop right now that he came to the racetrack specifically just to watch it run. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was being interviewed to see if I knew what I was doing or not. So, now his 1,000 horsepower Fox body is sitting in my shop to be built. So we have that one, and we actually have two more that are owned within my family that are all, shop race cars. One of them we just got, and I just finished it this past weekend. So that one's going on the racetrack for the first time this coming weekend in Fontana. And then we have another Fox body it's a big block car that's, all of them are pretty big monsters. And the word of mouth that things like that generate when you see, this loud, powerful, wheel standing machine is it's pretty powerful. And especially, when it's something that works and it's reliable, and, it's not the powerful race car that can make a pass and then it hangs the rods out of the bottom of it. You know what I mean? There's a lot to be said for building something that, you always see it at the racetrack. It always works. And, is just reliable, because that's what people want. They can't afford, the high maintenance race car life.
Yeah. How many hours a week are you planning on working, and how many are you working right now?
So in the beginning, I guess I'll start right now. So right now in my day job, I work 10 hours a day, and then I go and spend 2 to 4 more in the shop, and anywhere between 4 and 12 hours a day on the weekend in the shop. So obviously, like I said, I forgot what free time is, but that's all kind of temporary. And while it wasn't really planned, my marketing campaign I started sort of blew up in my face. And that's the only real reason I'm doing this part-time right now, is because the business is just coming and coming and coming, and it's really just helping to open the shop with the available funds, since as of right now I don't pull a single dime of profit out of the business,
because you don't need it
there. Yeah, I don't need it. Okay. So every dime that we make doing that, it stays right there, and we're investing it, and we're saving it for our growth in the very, very near future. So once we do start the shop, I mean, that's the 10 hours a day thing. 10 hours a day when I work right now, that's a break for me. So 10 hours a day when I get out of the service, that doesn't bother me in the least.
You keep saying we. Is it you and anybody else involved in this?
It's not. I guess I've just kind of, like I said, not yet, not until August. I've just gotten into the habit of referring to my business as its own entity.
Gotcha. Okay. I do the same thing a lot too, but I mean, me and Richard and Todd, we're all kind of a part of it. So, like I do the same thing. And do you have a family?
I do. I've got a wife. We've been married almost 5 years now, and no kids. Got a couple dogs. They're pretty cool, but.
And she's aware of the time commitment. I mean, if she's used to you as a Marine, I'm sure this time commitment into the shop is not going to be a big deal, right?
No, I mean, just to put it into perspective, there's during our, we'll be 5 years in August, so almost 5 years of being married. I've spent at least 2 of those away from home, either deployed to the Middle East or training in somewhere in some training area for a month or 2 at a time, or whatever it is. Like I've spent a lot of time away from home. So, when people say that working long hours like bears on your family, it's valid, but it doesn't really hold a candle to just not being on the same side of the world. Okay.
Now, this is something that may be out of your control. I know how this goes, but does she want kids anytime soon?
Not really. I mean, we've sort of decided that we enjoy the life that we live, and maybe when we're older and, about to not be able to have them anymore, maybe that's an option, but we don't, she doesn't have any desire to have any right now, and, we'll see what the future holds.
Okay. What's the plan for managing the business? I think we've talked about this a little bit, but you're going to use QuickBooks, what are you all doing? MSA, a shop manager you mentioned you were going to be looking for. What is the plan?
So right now I am on MSA, and like we've established, it's just me, but I use MSA, I use QuickBooks Online, and I mean the goal out of using those are the 2 main ones, but the goal is to stay kind of paperless, because filing things and staying organized with paperwork is not my strong suit. So, computer systems that can do that for me is outstanding. So the trick will be to have these systems and processes in place before the employees are hired. So I'm kind of holding myself to my own system. Like, okay, when a car comes into the shop, this is what takes place. These are the things that are filled out. This is the steps that we take. And, even though it might seem tedious and even kind of ridiculous for me to be, managing myself in that way, I feel like if those systems are perfected before they show up, it's a whole lot easier to hold them to that standard, because it'll be that way from day one. It's not trying to bring in, a new computer system or a new management tool and try to teach people that this is what you're going to do from now on. It's just this is the way that the shop runs. So, like I said, eventually, the goal is to have a shop manager that can manage the day-to-day activities, but that's going to be, at least close to 2 years away.
So that's excellent to have a system in place for when you do hire somebody, they can follow it and not just kind of, okay, here's a wrench, go for it, right?
Yeah, that's sort of especially, if you're talking about turn rate of employees, especially in a brand new shop, if you're trying to attract valuable and talented people, if you hire somebody and then try to figure it out later, don't expect those type of people to stay around and stay very loyal for very long.
What resources have you utilized? You've mentioned a few of them already, but what have you done to get your ball rolling? Reading books, what books do you like? What classes, online tutorials, anything you've done? What's something that other people can look for too?
So I'll shamelessly plug the Essentials of Operating a Shop class. It's probably the most valuable one I've had, just because it's the most relevant to what I'm doing. It's the only real class that you can go to where you can really learn what it means to run a performance shop. There's a lot of business classes, and I've been to many of them, but that one is that was like the most valuable tool for me. Other than that, I've been to, like I said, just about every seminar that both the local Small Business Development Center and the SCORE Center offer, and we're talking about seminars on business legal issues, how to use QuickBooks, on marketing, on business plan writing, brand identity, sales strategies, webinars on selling automotive services, just all kinds of things that they're really, really easily accessible. If you go into like a local SCORE office or a local small business development center, that's what those people are paid to do, is to help you succeed. And some of it you have to take with a grain of salt, because not all of it applies to what you're doing, but the concepts of what you need to do to be successful in your business, and to have systems in place, and to have benchmarks and et cetera. Those types of things are very, very relevant to what we do. So far as books, my favorite two are Good to Great and The E-Myth Revisited. So if you hear me talking about previously I've been mentioning this vision of what I want my life to look like, which is essentially just having your business work for you, not you be a slave to it. And that's really straight out of the E-Myth. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend go pick it up, because it's very, very valuable. And again, not everything applies, but a whole lot of it does, especially the whole idea of approaching your business as a technician, which I think every single performance shop owner does. Yep. They were a tech first. They know how to work on cars, and they think that as long as they're good at that, then that's enough. And the sad truth is that's not always the case.
Yeah, it works until you need to cash out or get out of it, and then you realize you haven't done enough to have anything to go forward without doing that. I guess you don't have a retirement or any savings.
Yeah, and you've been working a job which you might enjoy, and that's great, but did you really accomplish what you set out to do? Is your life really what you want it to be, or are you're endlessly turning wrenches and working crazy hours, and that's the beginning and end of your existence, which it doesn't need to be that way. I'd also like to point out the fact that I am living proof that this podcast has real value. So I've listened to every single one of these, most of them more than once. It's how I heard about the EOS class, and honestly, I don't know where I'd be without them. It's very, very relevant and very applicable.
Which ones do you find most useful to you?
Yeah, so I think my favorite one is probably D3s, and that's any of them that are coming from shop owners. I think that they're very relevant, because like I said, not everything that they do and the way that they do things might necessarily apply to me or I even agree with, but it does show, it gives you the opportunity to learn from someone else's mistakes, and you can kind of skip over that whole process of figuring it out the hard way.
I think that's very important. Yeah, I mean, skipping over making mistakes, and they're costly mistakes most of the time. And if you don't have to make those same mistakes, you're at a big advantage.
Well, let's hope that I get there. I mean, like I said, I've saved enough, and I've done enough to succeed if I do this the right way. I don't have enough sitting around to do it wrong for any extended amount of time.
Okay, so Lee mentioned it. The Essentials of Operating a Shop class is a useful tool, and let's go into some detail onto that here a second. EFI University is hosting a new class called Essentials of Operating a Shop. If you're interested in learning how to run your shop more efficiently, this class is for you. For details and to find a class near you, go to EFI101.com and look for the Essentials of Operating a Shop class. Our next class is being held in Denver, Colorado on July 16th, followed by Charlotte, North Carolina on July 23rd. Be sure to use the coupon code DIFAL for $50 off when you sign up. So moving on, a little bit about yourself. What's something that you think you'll struggle with in business, and how do you plan to deal with it?
I mentioned it a little bit earlier, and my biggest challenge, I know, and I'm experiencing it right now, but that challenge is interacting with people and managing in a way that people respond to positively. So, the way I've led people for years is it's not exactly appealing to a lot of people, and the way that I handle difficult situations isn't, that knee-jerk response isn't necessarily appealing to customers either, right? So literally it's been my job for years and years and years to get loud and get a little crazy to make things happen, to get things accomplished. And I have this huge desire sometimes to let that kind of part of me come out with when I'm dealing with difficult customers or, what have you. And so far I've been doing well. I haven't snapped on anybody, right? But I have to be extremely, extremely conscious of it. And I think I'll be all right. I'm leaving the service for a reason. It's not something that I want to drag along with me. But where I come from, that type of being, it has purpose and it has good purpose. But there's no real place for it in what we do here. So
do you think hiring a veteran would be a benefit to you, or is that something that like you don't necessarily look for? Like having somebody who's used to that kind of mentality, is that something that you would be looking for?
Maybe. I mean, me being around like service members for so long, maybe that would be a good thing. But again, I'm not really trying to like pull that atmosphere out of where I came from and into this. So, some service members are extremely goal oriented and they're very hardworking, but some of them are, to put it frankly, they don't know how to function without extreme constant direction. And in this type of business, like, yeah, there needs to be direction, but it's not the same type of direction. So I'm not opposed to it. I love veterans, as those are my people, but what it's going to come down to is who is most qualified and who's the best fit for our atmosphere, not necessarily who can deal with my angry outbursts the best.
All right. We like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest an action item our listeners can take that would improve their situation?
Absolutely. So first, I want you to forget for a second about the fact that your business is your life and your life is your business. So forget that for a second and ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to be able to do? How much free time do I want to be able to have? Whatever it is, ask all those difficult questions. If money was no object, if time was no object, what do you want to be able to do in your life? Now, take that vision of your life and work backwards into your business. So, how much money do you need to be able to do what you want? To give you that, how much does your business have to generate? How many people will it take? What markets do you need to be in to sustain it? And so on and so on. How many people are you going to need to be there to give you the free time that you want? Work all the way back to where you are right now. And now you have just created a list of milestones and goals to work for. So whatever that smallest step was when you worked all the way back, take the first one and just start pushing. Don't keep chasing your tail just for the sake of the grind.
That's really, really cool. I have never actually heard that before, and I'm guessing that's something you've pulled from maybe one of the books or classes, or is that just kind of your own? Is that something you came to on your own volition there?
Well, like I said, the whole vision of your life thing is very E-Myth, but again, when I said way back when I decided I was going to do this, I decided that I had a vision of my life, and this is going to be a part of it, but it's not going to be the only part of it. So, it's a real easy exercise to do if you just want to do it, but a lot of people have a real hard time with letting go of any of that. So,
yep. Okay, so you already said that you've been listening to all the podcasts and many of them several times. Give us some ideas of things that you have taken from them that you plan on implementing in your own shop.
Yeah, so, I said I've listened to all of them. I'm in the Facebook group. I read that pretty much every day. And I'd probably be a whole lot more lost than I already am without all of those resources. But I think the biggest overall theme that I've learned from all of these shop owners and these industry guys has been that you can never be everything for everybody. Saying no to the right things will do you way more good than saying yes to everything. And that's like tough to accept, especially when you're saying no to things that even you enjoy or a job that you want to do, or somebody that you like, or whatever it is. There's or even like me, when you don't, you're just starting and you're tempted to take whatever comes in the door. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the bottom line. All right, is this going to make you money, and is it worth your time, or are you just dragging along for your own personal reasons?
So let's move to the quick answer questions here. Give us a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
Okay, so this might not be applicable to a lot of listeners, but like I said, we dabble in bracket racing a lot, and there's a company called APD that built it's called the Max Speed Carburetor. So for index racing, where you run on an index time, most of them are 890, 990, and 1090. You use a throttle stop to take a car that's much faster than that and slow it down to run on that index. So APD has taken the throttle stop and integrated it into the carburetor linkage, and they added a squirter valve into the metering block that now allows you to tune AFR almost in the same manner as EFI, where you can tune the AFR on wide open and while it's kicked down on the throttle stop completely independently, which with a carburetor you really cannot do. So it's for what we do, it's pretty awesome.
Are you not allowed to use EFI in those classes?
You can, but the whole point is that if you've ever watched a car, if you ever watched like a dragster that leaves the line and it looks like it falls on its face, that's a throttle stop kicking on. So you're allowed to use EFI, but the simple fact is that most racers, they don't understand EFI, and a bracket car is something that even after it's built by somebody like me, the racer still has to constantly adjust and tune it at the racetrack, like often. So having a carburetor that they understand that can work in like a similar fashion is a whole lot more appealing to people than saying, all right, hey, I tuned your EFI stuff, but here at the racetrack from now on, you're going to have to figure out how to use this software and learn how to compensate for things. Like there's just, a lot of these guys are older, to be honest, and they just don't understand.
Okay.
But carburetors, they do understand. So, kind of combining the elements into a carburetor is pretty good.
Okay. What software programs are you using daily?
Like I said, MSA, QuickBooks Online. I use Excel for just about everything.
What's your favorite app?
I think Grasshopper. Grasshopper's it's a VoIP system, so that's like my shop phone, and it's just a trick. It comes right to my cell phone, but it's its own number. I can text from it. I can receive faxes, do whatever with it. Something that I also got from Do It for a Living was iMargin, which is just a little margin calculator, but I use that thing like every day too.
And what's your favorite shop tool?
So in the shop, it's my little Lincoln MIG welder. It seems to solve just about every problem I ever had. But for racing, it's my AirTech tire pressure gauge, and that's like the coolest little tool that you never knew you needed. And I actually loved it so much that I called the company PDG, and I became a dealer for this tool. So
And it's just checking your air pressures is what it is?
Yeah, so I mean, it's got its own special fitting that screws into the wheel that you just plug into, so you don't have to hold like a chuck on it anymore. You just plug it into the wheel, and it's got like a big manifold that's got the gauge on it, the digital gauge. It reads to 1/100th of a pound, and you can like fill your tires right there on the manifold, like bleed them, check them, everything, and you can do it while like you're standing up. You're not like crouched over on the tire, like trying to hold the chuck on it and do all that kind of craziness.
Awesome. And what kind of car are you driving daily? Or I guess maybe you're not driving it daily.
So I've got every day, most days anyway, I drive an 04 F350 diesel. I've got a 92 Fox body. It's a little street car that's got some nitrous in it. I drive that, fairly regularly. And, sometimes I steal my wife's 2012 Mustang. And then, like you said, I've got the monster race car that runs on alcohol that,
Okay.
That one's fun too.
And I guess before we close this thing out, I wanted to follow up on your game-changing product. So is EFI something that you feel like would be a market in your Mustang market? I mean, like a sub-market? Like, is that something that – because obviously in the import scene, and a lot of people that listen to this podcast are coming from the import side, EFI is on literally everything, and we want to make everything EFI even if it wasn't to begin with. Is that something that you could be doing, or is that just your market just doesn't want it or need it?
So for the street guys, the street guys, like, yeah, obviously a vast majority of that stuff is EFI because they want the drivability out of it and stuff. But for the race cars, for the pure drag cars, don't get me wrong, there are a fair amount of them, like the Holley Terminator systems and things like that, like the kind of the plug and play EFI systems. They're gaining popularity, but they're mostly with younger racers that understand that stuff. You know, because it's with a bracket car, you can't just, it's not the same as a street car where you can just tune it and go drive it. You know, you're always in the ECU changing something. So for the older guys, like, it's starting to catch on, you know, that EFI University is starting to work, you know, now NHRA Pro Stock is EFI, and, you know, that's starting to carry over into a lot of things. And I'm sure that it'll eventually go to a vast majority, especially as like the younger generation comes into racing a whole lot more than they are now. But I think it's gonna be pretty slow to be all EFI the way like all street cars are now.
Okay. What do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
You know, I really think that the talk about all the small motors and turbochargers and that being everything that's in the future, I think it's a little exaggerated. So as far as I'm concerned, nothing is ever going to replace the appeal of like a big monstrous V8. But the ability to manipulate an engine through electronic control like EFI, like we were just talking about, it's only going to get more advanced. So I have a feeling that before too long, there's guys like me, we're going to have to go back to school to learn the rocket science behind what it's going to take to build and run this stuff.
Okay. And I actually think you'd be at a huge advantage doing that sooner than later too, right? I mean, it's if your drag racer guys are not doing it yet, if you're the first person to do it and you're beating them all, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me that it'd be an easy way to sell people, huh?
and you're gonna laugh because the stuff that's on my own race car is actually not even a carburetor. It's pretty old technology. It's my race car's got mechanical fuel injection on it.
Nice. Like a barn door trap thing, sort of airflow meter. What is it doing?
Yeah, it's got a throttle body on top of it, and each of the injectors, they're not injectors, they're injector nozzles. So kind of the same idea as like a nitrous nozzle. Yeah, and it's just regulated by, you know, they spray all the time
based off the throttle position, right?
Yeah, but there's really only two throttle positions. There's idle and there's wide open. And you just lean it down with it's a return style system, and there's only two adjustments you can make. You set the idle, and then you just tune the air fuel ratio at wide open. And I mean, for drag racing, that's all you need, right?
It's wildly consistent, though, huh?
Yeah, it's deadly.
Okay, so how do we connect with you and your company?
On our website, it's www.sweitserperformance.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram. You can email me, lee@sweitserperformance.com. You can call me, too, at 951-331-3223.
So, Lee, I want to thank you for giving us some time and talking with us on the show here.
Well, I appreciate very much you having me on. You know, hopefully I can help somebody because I'm really nobody yet. So if I can contribute in some way, that's pretty awesome to me.
Yeah, and I think what we'll be doing is following up with you to kind of see, you know, like how things are progressing for you. I think that'd be really cool. So
I'm looking forward to it, and it's given me quite the motivation not to screw it up.
Okay, thanks again, Lee.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now.